Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And today we got why the dog
Oh,
it makes me laugh every single time. Welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show with my co-host David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show.
and welcome to all of you out there who might be listening or watching. And we greet you as always with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we always hope that you continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And we also pray that you're doing okay in these crazy times we live in. And we got a new storybook today. In our story, I'm going to drop a little X. Snowbird and the Water Tiger.
Yeah, can't wait for that. It's out of a new book because we finished last week's book.
Yep,
Very good.
we've finished several books now. This is 139 shows we've done, and so we've been through about 3 or 4 books in this progress of reading stories and trying to bring information to you. So
That's right. And remember, everybody, if you don't want to watch the whole show, go back and watch the whole show. I do have shorts of just the stories that David reads. So you go out there and look under my shorts. It's in a playlist, and you can listen to short stories for hours. Just play them one right after the other, story after story after story. I cut out all the other parts. It's just the storytelling. So there you go. Check those out too. Those are sometimes a favorite. I put them on myself, because I'm like, it's pretty good. I have listened to so many times. Sometimes I swear I could tell myself. But anyway, that's why some of them almost seem the same. It's like, gosh, did I listen to that one or is it the different one? But anyway,
but there are many stories that span the different ages and timelines of different tribes. So it's not the same story, but it's the same subject. So it's interesting, that of all the stories, I've read, there seem to be some copycats, but they're not. They're slightly different. Always. There's always a little twist in there. So, but anyway, we hope that you will stick around until Snowbird and the Water Tiger are new. The book is American Fairy Tales from Compton, and it's 1907. So it's an old book.
Well, tonight is the night for old books, that's for sure, because I have a few tall tales to tell out of books too, but they're not fairy tales. These are real events. So stick around for that. And I see Chloe's in the house, and Nina's changed her name up a little bit. Nina the Mystic Truther. Nice. I like it. And don't forget to go over to Nina's channel where you too can get yourself a Milky Way Soul Tribe, a shirt, a Robert V that says Milky Way Soul Tribe on there, just like this. Comes in a nice little bag. They're about $20, and you can have my smiling face with the Milky Way Soul Tribe on your chest too. Please go over there and support the Milky Way Soul Tribe by getting a shirt for yourself or a mug, a sweatshirt, winter's coming, a hoodie, something over there for the Milky Way Soul Tribe, because it's a limited time only. And at the end of the month, they go bye-bye forever. But I want to shout out to Nina for putting them up there. I didn't have the time to do that, and she did. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. I appreciate so much to have some merch out there that says Milky Way Soul Tribe. And especially with my smiling face. But plus, there's some that are dedicated to Brian, the original founder of the Milky Way Messenger, that really started all of this, and we honor him each and every day. Yes, and of course, Nina says, it ends on August 31st. So get in there. Half the month is almost already gone, and you will miss out. She's also got a ton of new merch in there as well with the Anakarana. So get your stuff. She's got some specials for the stickers. I got stickers up here that she has You can get these kinds of stickers that say Nina the Mystic on there, or you can get Anakarana like that. These what I forget how much it is, but there's 100 stickers or whatever it is for $20, or I don't know what it is, how many stickers you get, but $20 you get a pocket load of stickers. But they're pretty cool. I stick them on things. I got books and stuff here that I stick my stuff on. Yeah, like I got my little journal here, and I just stick those stickers on there. And then I have a nice little book to write in with an Anakarana on it, and I know that is mine because nobody else has Anakaranas. And okay, and she's got a new logo. It looks like it. New logo. Gotta love that. Sticker packs, she says, are via email or get some in the merch store. There you go. And the new logo. I like it. Nina's always updating. Go over there, check her out, get some Milky Way Soul Tribe shirts, mugs, you name it. Get some stuff. Get the new merch from her with the new logo. That I gotta check that out too. New logo. That is nice. Nina, you did a good job. I like it. Anyway, okay. So anyway, Travis the Architect's in the house. And Mary Wins. Here's Mary Wins. She's in the other town. And she says, yep, Mary Wins here. Yeah, we know. Anybody that knows you knows that Mary Wins is in the house. Anyway, yeah, Nina has been busy today. Okay, and Lucky Stone is in the house. Happy Tuesday. Well, anyway, on with the show. We're going to start out a little bit with last week. I had, maybe not. We were talking about Kentucky, and I want to go back there. We're going to go back a little bit of history of Kentucky because I did find my folder on it. Go figure. So I'll put this up here and get back what I missed out. Remember, they were the colonies were spreading out, they were moving out, and they were going out into this wilderness. And that's what some of these stories I'm going to read for you tonight, the wilderness stories and how the land was conquered. These people were living in the colonies. They said, I need bigger area. I need some cheap land, and I'm going to build a farm. I'm going to raise my children. It's going to be great. So what did they do? They went ahead and they moved out there, and here we go. This is where it all started. I got a screen to share. Okay. And voila, just like that. Okay, we're going to move this up. Okay, indigenous Americans in Kentucky. The myth of an empty Kentucky, once perpetrated by land speculators in the 1700s, had a lasting effect on the people's understanding and beliefs about the presence of indigenous Americans in the state. Remember, we talked about it. And really, the tribes didn't settle there. It was kind of like the big, giant hunting ground. Because they had some superstition that something bad happened there in the past. Many different tribes once called Kentucky home, including the Cherokee and the Chickasaw and the Shawnee. We talked about them last week. The Shawnee hunted and lived in the Bluegrass region. These clans were part of the larger Shawnee tribe who lived in the Ohio Valley, with most of the other major villages and the settlements being in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. It is likely that no major indigenous settlements were in Kentucky. And again, the Shawnee, were dominating that whole region. However, the archaeology of the state, from rock art, cave paintings, and arrowheads, and ancient pottery shards, proved that the indigenous Americans lived throughout the state prior to European contact. Of course, you got open land, people are going to go out there. Indigenous Americans were forced from their homelands, including Kentucky, because of European settlers. This came in the form of European settlement and conflicts, and eventually more centralized tactics, including Indian removal and the Trail of Tears. Yeah, we're going to do some more shows on that. Today, Shawnee tribes in Oklahoma, including the Eastern Shawnee, claim Kentucky as one of their tribe's original homes. Yep, during the Trail of Tears, they packed them up, literally, and said, you're marching to Oklahoma, a land far, far, far to the west. And then you can have that land because nobody else wants it. So what happened before the white man was there? Pladonians lived in Kentucky, in western Kentucky, and eventually migrated eastward. Now, this is what scientists are saying. People dug up the bones and things like that. So this is all speculation because they really don't know. Trust me, they find a little bone and or an arrowhead that looks out of place and they make a story about it. So can't really put a lot in there. The Pladonians were Clovis people, of course, meaning that they used tools and were hunter-gatherers. That's what they believed. They moved in groups of 15 to 20 people. Of course, they didn't live back then, so we have no idea. There might have been 100 people.
You know what?
Yes.
I got to just interject for a second. You know, every time we turn around, and as we have read, you know, the Indians had ears of corn 2 feet long. Yeah. And things like that, and 6 miles of corn, you know, growing, you know, and so, but every single one of these archaeologists, and sometimes you just want to slap them, is that everybody was a hunter-gatherer.
Yes.
There is no other thing. Oh, they were too stupid to grow anything, or everybody was a hunter-gatherer. And the more we read and the more we learn, of course, back then you had to hunt and gather stuff. But this idea that they were just stupid and just traveled around willy-nilly is just not right. So, okay, there's my 2 cents worth.
No, I totally agree, because these people, they lived back in the day, and you know, they developed this corn, and it wasn't the Indians that bragged about their 2-foot corn. It was the white man that came along and said, holy cow, they got 2-foot ear corn. What the heck is going on? They build houses. They're better than ours. They got 6 miles of corn. How did they do this? They didn't do this overnight. That's what, you know, 7,000, 8,000 years ago, they were working on this stuff. What these scientists are digging up, yeah, some of them were just hunter-gatherers. And if you were a hunter-gatherer, you would have been living in a tribe that was only 15, 20 people, so you could pack up and move. But
also, it's hard to feed anybody above 15 and 20.
Yes.
That's something that I listened to an interview of an old Indian chief, and he said, you know, do you know how hard it is to feed 50 people?
Yeah.
Every day? It was like,
Well,
so, you know, we think of these tribes, but there was an economic reason that they were in small tribes, because they could feed each other.
Well, yeah, you know, the hunters would have had to go on out. If you had 100 people, you would have to go out and kill at least 2 or 3 deer to feed everybody every single day. Plus,
yeah.
You know, well, we went out and shot a buffalo today, and shot another buffalo today, and another, you know, every day we'd have to get a buffalo to feed the 100 people. And that's not including, you know, well, if you're a hunter-gatherer, you go through the forest. Yes, there's wild carrots, there's wild onions, there's berries, and there's all these things that you can pick. But for 100 people every day, you would have to pack up and keep moving, because wild stuff just doesn't grow that concentrated. You know, that's just not the way nature is. Oh, look, a giant patch of wild carrots here. You know what I'm saying? Oh,
and that wild patch of carrots would be cultivated and gone. So, but one of the things that the natives always did, though, they never picked everything. They always left something, you know. So if they found wild garlic, they'd pick a bunch, but they'd leave some, or whatever it was. But as Robert is reading about this, just remember that, you know, the natives, and they were hunter gatherers. Well, they had to, you know. But this idea that it to me, it presents that they were stupid. All they could do was hunt and gather stuff and move around, and it was a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, and that's exactly, that's why I almost hate reading about this stuff in a way, because I feel kind of guilty I'm presenting it. And it's sad because I shouldn't be feeling guilty that I'm telling like lies, because I don't think it's lies, but I don't think it's the truth either.
Well, look at today. You turn on the news and you got this perspective,
Yeah.
and then it's like, but is that perspective the right one? There are lies being told all around and this and that. And so, but back in the day, so the white people had a set mindset, and those folks came from England. And so they had that English European mindset that they brought with them.
Yes.
So anybody that didn't think about this, anybody who didn't think like them were the enemy.
Yes. Absolutely.
And we got that still today. I mean, UK's arresting people for, speaking out on the internet or whatever. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. Well,
we haven't changed in 300 years.
No. And you think these people would have been doing something totally different? Once you get people to gather together as a group, then they start working together and figuring things out. That would have been the first idea is, hey, we got a group of 15 people, and now all the women had children. Now we're a group of 25 people. Now what do we do? And then next year our women had more kids, and now we're a group of 35 people. Now what do we do? Holy cow! You don't just say, well, everybody, we're going to break up into 2 clans now because we got 35 people, and 15 of you go that way, and 15 of us go this way. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We do know that back in the day, even the Indians are very family orientated. They stick with their family. Don't say, well, we got too many brother, sister, you got to get out of here.
They were a tribe.
Yeah, you didn't make the lottery.
Like we are the Soul Tribe. They were a tribe. They were together. They were family. And some of them were related, and one way or the other. But they were a tribe, and they worked for each other and helped each other. And there was very little hierarchy in that the elders were the bosses. But as far as this, well, we got to vote for a chief every year, or we got to do with this. No, it was very much more that people earned the respect of the rest of their tribe. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that person knows a lot about medicine. We're going to make them the medicine person.
Well, and
they were elevated because of their knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with that. See, but here, look at, if you read these words, we're spending way too much time on this bull, I guess, that these groups of 15 or 20 people hunting mammoths and mastodons. Now, why would you be hunting a mammoth for 20 people? Or a mastodon? Do you know what risks that would have been to kill a giant elephant that could squish and kill you if you only have 15 or 20 people in your group? Because some of them, half of them are probably women and children. So you got 5 guys that go out to kill a giant elephant, and then what, are you going to drag it back? Are these people superhuman strong? I'd see none of that makes sense. I could see you got 100 people and you in your group, and you have to go kill a mammoth once in a while, but see, none of that makes any sense.
And I mean, everybody has, I've been to the zoo and seen an elephant, a couple of times. So, but this idea that, wait a minute, I'm a hunter gatherer and I'm going to choose one of the biggest critters to kill it. Yeah.
When you can hunt a deer, it's not going to kill you. Maybe even a buffalo, run it off a cliff or something. It's going to be a lot safer. Of course, back then there was elk, and there was all kinds of other critters too. It wasn't just we got to kill all the mammoths because they're killing the forest or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh,
Right.
there's so many of them.
And here's the thing. So all these archaeologists and folks are all giving the same narrative, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, 8,000 years ago, the caveman was hunting down the woolly mammoth with spears. Well, yeah, okay. What else do you have? But are you sure he was hunting down a woolly mammoth? Really? I mean, they might have found spear points or something in some mammoths, but I seriously doubt that's what, oh, come on, Joe, we're going to go out and hunt us a mammoth today. All right, Bill, and off they go. Think otherwise, And why would they kill something that big? Like you said, why would they, kill something that big? Because, it would spoil. And it would also, a dead carcass would attract a lot of other critters, hyenas and whatever else might be around, so it's like, are you sure you want to kill that great big thing? But anyway, I think that the narrative that archaeologists try to portray is way out of whack. That's why I'd never make a very good archaeologist. I'd go, nah, they were up to something else. I bet you they were tracking small critters and stuff, and rabbits were, they could probably snare them. They learned how to snare things and catch them, and, but anyway, continued.
Chloe says, they were superhuman strong, but that's enough meat for several months. Yeah, that would have been, but the risk involved in killing one of those giant critters could have been, you could lose 2 guys trying to kill it. And besides that, how many arrows and spears would you have to throw into that mastodon or mammoth thing to actually kill it? I don't think I'd be there doing that.
Because the only real place to kill it would be in its chest. So, arrows and spears on its back and legs and all that would just piss it off.
Well, she also says if they would dry out the meat. Yeah, I believe that. They've been doing that for hundreds of years. That's a good way to keep meat. Plus, they would use every part of the animal in their livelihood. Yes, absolutely. But, she also says, why would they kill buffalo or bison? Well, because it's a smaller critter. It's small. It's probably easier to run a buffalo off a cliff than a mastodon or a mammoth. I would think. It would probably,
And the stories are that the bison were a lot more lethargic. So they were a lot less apt to charge at you or try to kill you unless you just got right in front of it. But, and the stories go that the buffalo was a giveaway. In other words, its reason for being here was to feed and clothe the populace. Yeah. But a mastodon, I don't know.
I mean, I can't imagine the hide.
I'm sure they killed him, but the idea is that all the archaeologists go right to the mastodon. They always go right to the biggest critter.
That's exactly what they say here. It says the 15 or 20 people hunting mammoths and mastodons. And I'm thinking, well, what is that? Their main diet of food is mammoths and mastodons, and that's why they went extinct.
Because there were so many of them that got trampled. It was like that was a hairy business,
Exactly. Anyway, going on for the next. Then I love how they group this stuff together for the next 7,000 years. You really know it was 7,000 years from 8,000 BC to 1,000 BC. Indigenous Americans continued to live in Kentucky. Archaeologists have named these Palladian descendants Archaic peoples. As the Ice Age ended, Kentucky's climate became milder, with summer lasting longer. As these peoples were also hunter-gatherers, no permanent settlements were used. Indigenous Americans during this time, however, valued Kentucky for the fauna in the region: deer, elk, bears, rabbits, squirrels, and raccoons. By 1000 BC, the climate of Kentucky was similar to the climate in the state today. Population size of Indigenous Americans grew. Although these people still moved in with the season, they began to move less frequently and began returning to locations because they started gardening. Well, it makes no sense why they would just start gardening, maybe, all of a sudden because they didn't want to move around. But see, it's like, oh, we kill all the mastodons. Now we're going to kill all the buffalo. We're going to start hunting smaller deer, elk, bear, rabbits, things like that. And I just don't buy this. And besides that, as we've looked at the native populations and the houses that they built out of twigs and branches and things like that, if you built one of those, after 100 years, there is going to be no trace of that thing left. Literally nothing. You're going to have maybe the fire pit and to go off of, and that is pretty much it. Not really much there to signify a building of any sort when you didn't put up a building. You put up a wigwam or something like that. There, in 100 years, when you made it out of bark and tree branches, there's nothing to see. I mean, heck, your house that you have today, and if you just let it go, in 100 years, it would fall down and become a pile of rubble. In 200 years, it would be covered up by brush. And in 300 years, you wouldn't even know it existed. And that's kind of how I look at it. But then just add on 1,000 years or maybe 2,000 years, your house that you live in today would be unknown. And how do you expect them to go back and say, oh, they moved around a lot and they lived here and there, when you're living in a wigwam that is made of twigs and branches and some bark? How can you estimate that? Even if you built a log house back then, there'd be no way to tell 1,000 years later.
That's right. And I mean, look at the houses we've got now, the vinyl siding and stuff like that is like, some of that might last, but the wood would be rotted and turned to dust. So imagine coming upon a big pile of this, vinyl in 200 years going, oh, I wonder what this was,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
They must have used that vinyl for some kind of sacred act. They sacrifice people on the vinyl. I'm sorry. Because everything, the other thing is well, they always sacrifice people, they got to throw that. I'm sorry, I'm in a peculiar mood tonight.
Yeah. Chloe says, well, they claim they live in teepees. Well, yeah, teepees or whatever is logs and hides wrapped around the poles. You pick it up and you go, and there's literally no trace of it left once you left. The grass grows back, a little bit of erosion, and you can't tell it was ever there. Especially 100, 200, 1,000 years later, a tree grows up there. So that's especially in Kentucky where the land is grown. Let's get back to this. This is known as the woodland period. While the indigenous Americans in Kentucky were still hunter-gatherers, they stayed longer at settlements and tended to return year after year to the same places. They experimented with gardening and farming using controlled burns to kill weeds and enrich the soil. In eastern Kentucky caves, woodland indigenous Americans domesticated the earliest sunflower and goosefoot. As they learned varying plants and harvest cycles, they tended to stay all year if the food they planted could last them. This period is also known as the Ardenia culture became prominent. The Ardenian were mobile hunter-gatherer gardeners. Now they're hunter-gatherer gardeners who lived in groups again of 15 or 20 people, usually made up of extended families. We can't have much of an extended family with 15 or 20 people. Archaeology has been able to tell us much more about Ardenian culture than the ancestors who came before them. The indigenous Americans living in Kentucky during this period traded both locally and non-locally. Archaeologists have found, having found marine shells from the Atlantic coast in Kentucky, and the barite and limestone from Kentucky has been found along the coast. Ardenian used Kentucky limestone to make pottery, which helps them stand out from their ancestors. Following the Ardenian period, Fort Ancient culture lasted from 900 CE to 1750 CE, which includes early contact with Europeans. Fort Ancient peoples were no longer true hunter-gatherers. They still hunted and gathered, but they lived in permanent settlements with gardening and early agricultural technology, including crop rotation and controlled burns. During this period, the first interactions with Europeans occurred. Although the Spanish were in what is become the United States in the 1500s, there is no documentation of Europeans in Kentucky until the 1730s. There is evidence, however, that indigenous Americans at the time were aware of Europeans due to regional trade networks, including Kentucky peoples participating in deerskin trade with Europeans. And there you go. There would be their Fort Ancient culture. They were making forts too. See, that's the thing. What all of a sudden this theory, came together and said, "Hey, we can build a fort to protect us from our enemies."
But let's take what you just read, and that they weren't hunter gatherers. Now they're hunter gatherer gardeners. Well, now what's to say they weren't hunter gatherer gardeners for the last 7,000 years?
Yes.
I mean, where did they learn how to be hunter gatherer gardeners? So probably because for thousands of years these folks figured out that running around the countryside all the time was tiresome. And every month or so they had to move their camp, and wait a minute, that would get tiring. So I would think that over the thousands of years they would have passed down the information. And these archaeologists just assume, because they find bones in different periods, they name them, these Indians were this branch, and this branch was this one. And found out just here recently, here in the state of Georgia, there's a lot of evidence that around 800 AD, when the Mayans and everybody down on the Yucatan Peninsula disappeared, they ended up in Georgia, of all places. And there's a lot of evidence. And it's like, what? So there are a lot of the Cherokee and a lot of the folks, which would include this group in Kentucky, because if the Mayan were in North Georgia, it ain't part of Kentucky, considering. But so many of these indigenous peoples, the Cherokee and anyway, I can't the Creek and so forth, the Muskogee, and their ancestors may actually have come from Mexico.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So this idea that these guys have come up with this rendition, but anyway, but the more things go on and the more that history is uncovered, it's like nothing is just as simple as some of them folks tried to say. But now, when was that book written?
What? Which book?
What you're reading from?
Oh, this was on internet.
Oh, okay.
See, like I said, the stuff that we see here, and then once you start reading about stuff, it's just not the same. So that's what we're going to read about a little bit about tonight. I got an old book here, and I'm only going to read a little bit out of this book, and then I'm going to tell those stories. But I'm paging through this, and this book here, it's really old. It is from, gosh, I want you guys to see this, because this is really cool. It's an old book, another one of my old-time purchases. It was written in 1819. It's really brittle, but as you can see, the handwriting and the inscription inside somebody wrote is beautiful. I mean, it is David Livingston, March 29th, 1823.
Wow.
Yeah.
Almost exactly 200 years ago.
Yeah, and this book is history. 1823. So it's 100. Yeah. Wow. 100. Oh,
well, this is 2024, so.
Yeah, 200 years ago. this is the history of the discovery of America, of the landing of our forefathers at Plymouth, and their most remarkable engagements with the Indians in New England, from their first landing in 1620 until the final subjugation of the natives in 1679. Wow. And
subjugation. Wow.
Means capture, or you know what I mean.
Yep.
Anyway, this here was printed in it says printed by Stephen Sewell for the author and his office, 1819. So, there had to be some work before that, so this is really early 1800s work. And I mean, I got to start reading some more of this, but I just turn the pages and just start reading, and it's fascinating. And we can, this is called the Indian Wars. And in the years, and I'm just going to read a little bit out of here. This is chapter 6, Invasion of New York and New England, and the destruction of Schenectady by the French and Indians in 1690. It's just amazing. In the year 1690, the Mohawks, having made several successful expeditions against the Canadians, the Frontenac, I don't know what that means, to raise the depressed spirits of the latter, dispatched several parties of French and Indians to attack the frontier settlements of New York and New England. The detachment of nearly 500 French and Indians under the command of Monsieur P. Alibat de Wallet. Oh, I'm pronouncing that wrong, but that's French. Le Wallet Lee Wayne were dispatched from Montreal for this purpose. They were furnished with everything necessary for winter campaign. After a march of 22 days, they, on the 8th February, reached Schenectady. Yeah. They had, on their march, been so reduced. Wow, they're marching in the middle of winter. Now, remember, there ain't plowed roads either. They've been so reduced as to harbor thoughts of surrendering themselves prisoners of war to the English. Imagine marching in the winter. Yeah, I would want to surrender too.
I give up.
Yeah, it's the 8th of February. You know how cold it must have been? You're marching, and it's like, yeah, look at that. Looks like a straight line right there. Let's go.
Can I bring up something just as a curiosity?
Yeah.
It's 1690, right?
Yes.
When was Plymouth Rock? 16.
I don't know.
But here's my point. There were a lot of people that got there in 1690 to have 500 people dressed and going, and that they had left a fort. I mean, so there was a lot of people who had gotten to the United States, not just the English or the Spanish, by 1690. I just want to point that out, because 500 people back then, that was a boatload, literally, or maybe 2 boatloads, literally, of people. Exactly. So but anyway, and provisions.
Yes, and provisions. Okay, so they were going to do as prisoners of war, then English, but their spies, who had been for several days in the village entirely unsuspected, representing in so strong terms the defenseless state of the inhabitants, as determined them to make an immediate attack. They found the gates open and unguarded. Remember, everybody was living in forts at that time, unguarded, and then they entered them about 11 o'clock at night, and better to effect their hellish purpose, divided their main body into several distinct parties of 6 or 7 men each. The inhabitants were in a profound sleep and unalarmed until the enemy had broken open the doors and uplifted tomahawks were surrounding their beds. before they had time to rise, and the savages began the perpetration of the most inhuman barbarities. No language can express the cruelty with which were committed in less than 1 hour. Less than 1 hour, 200 of the unfortunate inhabitants were slain. The whole village erupted in flames. The detail of the cruelties committed by the barbarians cannot be read without horror. They ravaged, rifled, murdered, and mutilated the inhabitants without distinction of age or sex, without any provocation or excitement than brutal lust and the warrantness of barbarity. Pregnant women were ripped open and their infants cast into the flames or dashed against the post of doors. Such monsters of barbarism ought certainly not to be excluded from the privileges of human nature and hunted down as wild beasts without pity or sensation. A very few of the inhabitants escaped in their shirts. Remember, this is in the winter. In a severe stormy night, they fled to Albany. 25 of the fugitives in their flight perished in the cold. The enemy, after destroying the inhabitants, killed all the horses and cattle which they could find, with the exception of about 30 of the former, which they loaded with their plunder and drove off. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, can you imagine you're in a settlement, you're in a fort, somebody left the gate open, and all of a sudden, it ain't like today where you got people and cars and policemen to call and cell phones. I mean, when it was quiet out there, the only thing you're hearing is the crickets and frogs. And in the winter, you're going to just hear the howling of the wind in the trees and the bushes. There's no street lights, there's no nothing. And all of a sudden, you have 500 men show up and are standing over your bed with tomahawks and torches, and they're killing you. All of you. You know what I mean? It is, I can't imagine. And then the horrors, like I said, that they, no wonder why the Indians got a bad name as savages and barbarians, because because that's the way they did warring was, hey, you're my enemy. You are nothing. You are Plymouth was founded in 1620. So this is like, 70 years later. 70, yeah. And there was that many people around. Anyway.
And there's more than that, but I mean, because there was 500 people that could go on the march. But so I was just trying to figure out, wow, that's a lot of people in a few years. But anyway.
Yeah. Massachusetts was so far more south. That's the thing. That explains the Massachusetts Huguenot settlement, Indian tax, and stuff like that. So, okay. So to even this out, because, that's just too gross of a story to keep going with, because it's just the brutality. So I did find some stories that were nice. You got to have some nice with all the gore. And I did find some nice ones. Well, at least one nice one tonight. And this is about how a settler would be settling the frontier. And just picture yourself, your wife, and your children, and you are going to go settle the frontier. And this is the normal, everyday, average guy thinking he's going to make it. Okay, several years ago, a Scotsman and his wife named McDougall immigrated to America. Having but very little money, he purchased land where it was then sold for almost nothing in a country thinly populated by people and on the extreme verge of civilization. So basically back then, you're selling land. The king probably is granted this land, and you're buying it for little next to nothing because it is in the middle of nowhere. Nobody really owns it or paid for it. Somebody's making money off you. So, $5. Yeah, you're 500 acres over there. Go get it. Yeah, I guess. Okay, so his first care was to construct a house, obviously. A house and clear away some of the trees around it. This done, he spent his whole time early and late in making a garden and cultivating a few fields. By unwearied industry and with the occasional help of older settlers, he by degrees acquired a stock of cattle, sheep, and pigs, and was in a rough way possessed of a comfortable independence. His greatest discomforts were distance from his neighbors, the church, market, and even the mill. But above all, the complete separation from his friends, and this would have felt still more had he been an idle man. Now remember, you're moving out in the woods, and now you and me, we probably picture, oh yeah, well, he was like a mile or two away. No, we're talking he was probably 20 miles from the nearest neighbor or something crazy like that. Talking about being out in the sticks. One day, Farmer McDougall, having a quantity of corn to grind, knowing that the distance was considerable and the road none of the smoothest, set out in the morning at sunrise, hoping he should reach home again before dark. So maybe he wasn't that far out. Figuring you're going to leave in the morning, you travel all day, so it would have been, 15 miles there and 15 miles back? I would say you could do that. That's 30 miles in a day, right? When the farmer was at home, he always drove up the cows for his wife to milk, morning and evening, but now this care devolved on her, and careful woman went out for a quest of them. Not accustomed to go far from the house, she soon found herself in an unknown country. Remember, they didn't have fences. They just, there was no barbed wire to string. You just let the cows out, you put a bell on them, and you let them roam, and they roam through the woods and the fields and eat the grass, and you hope they come back. Or you got to go get them like she did. She wandered, not accustomed to going far from the house, she soon found herself in an unknown country, and with neither pocket compass nor notched trees to guide, it was not to be wondered that she was wandering long and weary to very little purpose. Tall trees seemed to encompass her on every side, or where the view was more open, she beheld the distant blue hills rising one behind another, but no village, no spire or cottage chimney was there to cheer her on her way. And fatigued with the search and despairing of finding the cattle, she resolved, while it was yet light, to retrace her steps homeward. But this resolution was more easily formed than executed. She became completely bewildered. She knew not in which direction to turn, and at length, with tears in her eyes and her mind depressed almost to distraction, she sunk to the ground. She had not rested there many minutes before she was startled by the sound of approaching footsteps. And on looking up, she beheld before her an Indian hunter. Oh, woman, probably young, out in the woods by herself, about ready to break into tears, and an Indian walks up. What do you do? Although Miss McDougall knew that there were Indians living in the neighborhood, she never had yet seen one, and her terror was very great, because I imagine she had, heard lots of stories about the Indians. The Indian, however, knew her. He had seen her before. He knew where she lived, and he instantly guessed the cause of her distress. He could speak but a few words of English, but he made signs for her to follow him. She did so, and after a few minutes' walk, they arrived at the door of an Indian wigwam. He invited her to enter, but not being able to persuade her to do so, he darted into the wigwam and spoke a few words to his wife, who instantly appeared by the kindness of her manner and induced the stranger to enter their humble abode. Venison was prepared for supper, and Miss McDougall, though still alarmed at the novelty of her situation, could not refuse to partake. Her could not refuse to partake of the savory meal. Well, imagine she'd been out there all day looking for the cows. She was hungry. Seeing their guest was weary, the Indian removed from their place near the roof 2 beautiful deer skins, and by stretching and fixing them across they divided the wigwam into 2 apartments. Now remember, it's not a tent; it's a wigwam, so it's like a long shed of some sort. Mats were then spread in both sides, and the stranger was made to understand that one division was for her accommodations. Remember, mats, they would weave mats out of grasses and leaves and whatever they had, usually grasses of some sort. Here again, her courage failed her, and to the most pressing entreaties, she replied that she would sit and sleep by the fire. This determination seemed to puzzle the Indian and his squaw sadly. They looked at one another and conversed softly in their own language, and at length the squaw, taking her guest by the hand, led her to the couch and became her bedfellow. So the squaw, being a woman, figured, well, if I lead her to the couch and I cuddle with her, maybe she will lay down and sleep some too. How nice. In the morning, she awoke, greatly refreshed and anxious to depart without further delay. But her new friends would not permit until she had eaten of their corn, cakes, and venison. Then the Indian accompanied his guest and soon conducted her to the spot where the cattle were grazing. These he drove from the woods on the edge, with which Miss McDougall described to her husband, who was equally delighted at seeing her, as her absence from home all night had caused him great unease. They invited their Indian benefactors to their house, and on his departure presented him with a suit of clothes. Remember, money wouldn't have meant much to the Indian, but clothing, remember we talked about clothes, cloth, that was a big deal. 3 days after he returned and endeavored partly by signs and partly in broken English to induce Mr. McDougall to follow him into the forest. But he refused. Time was precious to him, who had to work hard for everything he possessed, and the Indian repeated his entreaties in vain. The poor fellow looked grieved and disappointed, but a moment later a sudden thought struck him. He hit on an expedient which none but an Indian hunter would have thought of. Miss McDougall had a young child, which the Indian's quick eye had not failed to notice. Now, wait a minute. I'm going to stop right there. So, while Miss McDougall was out looking for the cows, and Mr. McDougall was on the road going to town for the corn, where was the young child all of this time? Home alone?
Yeah.
With Mr. McDougall? Well, obviously it wasn't with Mrs. McDougall because she was all alone. You know what I'm saying? So there's a puzzling question. Would you leave a young child? Young child? This is like a baby. Miss McDougall had a young child. It just says young child, doesn't look, which the Indian's quick eye had not failed to notice. And finding that his eloquence was completely thrown away upon the parents, he approached the cradle. So this was a really young child in the cradle, like a baby. So Miss McDougall abandoned her baby and went and looked for the cows for a day. Oh my goodness. We'd have none of that nowadays. The cradle, he approached the cradle, seized the child, and darted out of the house with the speed of an antelope. The father and mother instantly followed, loudly calling on him to return, but he had no such intention. He led them on, now slower, now chose. Oh, these pages stick together. Remember, this is a really old book. Faster, and occasionally turning towards their daughter and holding up the child to their view. It is needless to go into all the details in this singular journey, further than to say that the Indian is stead on enticing them to his own wigwam, as they expected, halted at length on the margin of the most beautiful prairie, covered with the richest vegetation, and extending over several thousand acres. In a moment, the child was restored to its parents, who, wondering what so strange a proceeding could mean, stood a while, panting for breath and looking at one another in silent astonishment. The Indian, on the other hand, seemed overjoyed and the success of his maneuver, and he never did a human being frisk about with laughter and elation with a greater animation. We have heard of professor of signs, and if such a person were wanted, the selection would not be a matter of difficulty, so long as the remnant exists of the aborigines of North America. All travelers agree in describing their gestures as highly dignified and their countenance intelligent. And we have Mr. McDougall's authority for stating that the hero of this tale proved himself a perfect master of the art of eloquence. His broken English was nearly in these words. So the Indian was just super happy that he followed him, gave him back the daughter, and danced around and did his signs and tried to communicate, but Mr. McDougall didn't know what he was saying, just looked really happy. But the Indian did speak. You think Indian treacherous. You think him wish steal the child. No, no. Indian has child of his own. Indian knew you long ago. Saw you when you not see him. Saw you hard-working man. Some white men bad and hurt poor Indian. You not bad. You work hard for your wife and child. But you choose bad place. You never make rich there. Indian, see your cattle far in forest. Think you come and catch them. You not come. Your wife come. Indian find her faint and weary. Take her home. Why fear and go in? Think Indian kill her? No, no. Indian lead her back. Meet you very sad, then very glad to see her. You kind to Indian. Give him meat and drink and better clothes than your own. Indian grateful. Wish you come here. Not come? Indian very sorry. Take the child. No, you will follow child. If Indian farm here. Good ground, not many trees. Make road in less than half a moon. Indian help you. Indians, your friends, come live here. This is totally not the story that we hear all the time. Mr. McDougall immediately saw the advantage that such a change would be to him. Taking the Indian's advice, the day was soon fixed for the removal of his log house, along with the rest of his goods and chattels. And the Indian, true to his word, brought a party of red brothers to assist in one of the most romantic removals that ever took place, either in the old world or the new. In a few days, a roomy log house was raised, and a garden marked out in the most fertile and beautiful part of the prairie. The Indians continued friendly and faithful, and good understanding between them and the white settlers, once a source of great comfort to both parties. And there you go. A nice, happy story from this book here. And this here is, like I said, this is Adventures with the Indians. And this book was printed in, it's old too.
1823?
No, I don't know when it is. This is 18 something. It's
Well,
thrilling
we said it was 200 years ago.
Yeah, thrilling adventures among the Indians, the most remarkable personal narratives of events in the various Indian wars of the United States, as well as incidents in the recent Indian hostilities in Mexico and Texas, by John Frost. Doesn't really say. Copyright by John Potter and Company. I think this is right around 1840 or 50. I think it is, maybe somewhere in there. At least before 1880, that's for sure. So this is the book right here. It cost me a good dime because those are expensive books. Anyway, so that was the happy story of the night. I do have another one in there, but we don't have time to read that. It's just the fact that the Indians could be your friend. I'm just imagining, like in Kentucky there. Here's this guy, he's on the edge of the colonies. He goes out, he buys this land really cheap. He's in the woods, it had to be, maybe it was Kentucky, maybe it was, Tennessee, somewhere in there. And he says, I'm going to build a house, works real hard. And the Indians going over there saying, oh my God, look at this guy. He's working so hard. He's cutting the trees, he's pulling stumps, he's got no food for his cows. And there's just 1,000 acres right over there, just right over there. Yeah, that's where he should build his house. And the Indian wasn't, bad about it. He was like, hey, I'll take you there and you take this land and we be your friends. I think the Indians, if we wouldn't have killed all their buffalo and wouldn't have, signed goofy treaties, I do believe that the white man and the Indian could have got along really well. That's the way I see it. What do you think?
Well, after 120, 30 years of suppression to the Native Americans, with all of them folks in Oklahoma, and there are, small reservations here and there, the Native folk has still kept their histories as much as they can remember, but they have not necessarily assimilated, but they've learned to get along. Well, so yeah. To your point, I think if the white man hadn't have been so cruel and driven them off the land, that they could have, learned a lot especially in, the white man needed to learn more about the land because they just saw it as something to make money, and the land to the native folk is sacred, and the white man still hasn't learned that. So, I think the white folks could have learned a lot if they had just listened to some of the elders and said, this land is sacred. Big deal. I bought it for 20 cents an acre. Now get off.
And that's where it all boils down. It's just like when I was a kid. I don't know, maybe it was probably even more so when you were younger. But when I was a kid, people had bigger tracts of land. Taxes weren't that much. And people were pretty friendly. They were poor, but they didn't want for stuff. I mean, so I remember going around, and it didn't matter whose land I was on. I had a little pony and a horse and stuff. I could ride anywhere I wanted, and nobody was out there saying, "Get off my land!" I pay taxes on this land. You stay off. Blah blah blah. Right? Of course, people still put up no trespassing signs and stuff like that, but nobody seemed to mind. Crossing, riding, whatever. You're out there, look at the kids out riding a horse. It's hurting nobody. But nowadays, at least at the end, before I moved out of Wisconsin, it got to the point where, this is my line here. I pay a lot of money in taxes. Don't you step 1 foot on my land. That's mine, and I pay the taxes. I pay the insurance. I have this house. I work real hard for it. It's mine, mine, mine. If you step a foot onto my land, you throw one piece of branch over here, you do anything, I'm calling the cops. And it went from, whatever to this is mine. You see what I'm saying? So it's like,
oh yeah,
it's all about the money. Oh, I paid so much for this and I worked so hard for it. And if you want,
but it's not just the money, it's the ownership. It's mine.
It's mine. Yes.
It's mine. And like Native folks, the land was everybody's. So there wasn't mine. But the white man still has it. Oh, I gotta have it's mine. I gotta make it's mine. And so I got my 18 acres and it's mine. But I do share it with my neighbors, But there is that thing about possession that the Native Americans still can't grasp. I mean, they understand it, but they don't get it.
Yeah. No, exactly. Because just doesn't seem the same. I mean, but that's where the white man had this mentality of, what is mine? I paid for it. This is mine and only mine, not yours. Its value is beyond belief to me. And the Indians like, there's lots of land out there. And now they're not making more land. And I think that's what it's all about. And then, of course, like you said, it's about, hey, I work this land and now I pay taxes on this land in order to live here. Because, if you really look at it, taxes is a form of renting. You're renting. If you quit paying the taxes, they come and get your land, no matter how much you own.
That's right? True. I've been there, done that.
Yeah, you're renting the land from the government, and there's your ownership. And because you keep paying, whereas the Indians didn't pay. They didn't pay any taxes. Hey, I got all this land. I've been living here 1,000 years, but I don't pay any taxes to anybody. I don't know this thing called money.
Well, and also, it was that Mother Earth belongs to everyone.
Yes.
And folks just can't get that. Mother Earth belongs to everyone. No, but I own this. I paid for that, and but Mother Earth, yes, it belongs.
Yep.
Earth belongs to everyone, and they still can't get it. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh man, we have some learning to do, from the.
After 250 years, we ain't learned squat.
No, that's right. I mean, to this
we
day,
ain't learned squat.
Yeah, to this day, we are still on the same track, fighting the same wars. Like it says, it's by reading what one of my buddies always said, well, what do you get out of all of that? And I says, well, the history tells the future. There you go. Somebody else wants your land. They're going to come in, they're going to stake it out and then buy the land, and you're on it. It's, big governments trade giant tracts of land, even though you live there, and then they settle it. That's how it works. That's what happened with the Indians. The government came in, staked out a claim and said, this is our land. And, they didn't care if there was Indians on there or not, or white men or whoever was on it. It's the Frenches, it's the Spanish, it's the British. And so what? You own 10 acres. 10 acres under the French flag. That's how it goes.
Yep.
And tomorrow it could be the British flag. Well, we were British French yesterday, and we're British tomorrow. And the next week there was another war, and now we're the Patriots. We're the Americans. All in a matter of a couple hundred years. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Well, here's your story for tonight. I got it all tuned up. New book, everybody. New book. Okay, it's all yours.
All right, and this is from the, I say it's our new book that we're reading from. It's American Indian Fairy Tales, Snowbird, the Water Tiger, and etc. by Compton, Margaret Compton, 1907. So this is well over 100-year-old stories. Now, these stories were told to people and then they wrote them down. So everything was oral tradition by the native. And then these folks sat down and listened. And so it's it's a retelling, but it's also what am I trying to say? It's sort of a translation. It's like, well, you know, I listened to this man tell this story and then I wrote it down in my words. So this is what we have. So here we go with this story. First time in this book. Sit back and listen. It's about 6 or 7 pages long. We'll see. Snowbird and the Water Tiger. Snowbird was the much-loved wife of Brown Bear, the brave hunter, whose home was on the shore of the Great Lake. He kept the wigwam well supplied with food, and Snowbird's moccasins were the finest in the tribe, save only those of the chief's daughters. Even those owed much of their beauty to the lovely feathers that Snowbird had given them. If you had asked her where she got them, she would have answered proudly, "My husband brought them from the chase." Besides Brown Bear and his wife, there lived in the wigwam their own dear little papoose, whom they called Pigeon. I'm trying to get my page to scroll down. Hang on a second. Hang on, I lost my place. I'm going to start over. I can't believe that this thing just jumped 9 pages. Okay, I'm going to start over because I hate having to jump and missing where I was at. And I still can't get the page to go down. I'm having the error is, and there was something going on in the background of my computer. So please forgive me. Let me start over. Okay, take 2. Snowbird and the Water Tiger. Snowbird was the much-loved wife of Brown Bear, the brave hunter, whose home was on the shore of the Great Lake. He kept the wigwam well supplied with food, and Snowbird's moccasins were the finest in the tribe, save only those of the chief's daughters. Even those owed much of their beauty to the lovely feathers that Snowbird had given them. If you had asked her where she got them, she would have answered proudly, "My husband brought them from the chase." Besides Brown Bear and his wife, there lived in the wigwam their own dear little papoose, whom they called Pigeon, because he was always saying "goo goo." But they hoped that he would win a nobler name someday, when he should fight the enemy or kill some beast that was terror to the tribe, and so to take its name for his own. These three would have been a very happy family, nor would the little orphan boy whom they had adopted long before Pigeon was born have made them any trouble. He was a great help to them, but there was still another inmate, Brown Bear's mother, a wicked old squaw, whom none of the other sons' wives would have in their wigwams. Brown Bear was her youngest son and had always been her favorite. She was kind to him when she was not to anyone else, and he loved her and took good care of her, just as much after he brought Snowbird home to be his wife, and as he had done before. But the old woman was jealous, and when Brown Bear brought in dainty bits, such as the moose's lip and the bear's kidney, and gave them to his wife, she hated her and grumbled and mumbled to herself in the corner by the fire. Day after day she sat thinking how she could get rid of the intruder, as she called her daughter-in-law. She forgot how she had married the only son of a brave chief and had gone to be the mistress of his wigwam, and he had been as kind and good to her as her son was to Snowbird. One day, when the work was all done, the old woman asked her daughter-in-law to go out to see a swing she had found near the great lake. It was a twisted grapevine that hung over a high rock, but it was stout and strong, for it had been there many years and was securely fastened about the roots of two large trees. The old woman got in first and, grasping the vine tightly, swung herself further and further until she was clear out over the water. "It is delightful," she said. "Just try it." So Snowbird got into the swing. While she was enjoying the cool breeze that rose from the lake, the old woman crept behind the trees, and as soon as the swing was in full motion and Snowbird was far out over the water, she cut the vine and let her drop down, 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 not stopping to see what became of her. She went home and, putting on her daughter-in-law's clothes, sat in Snowbird's place by the fire, hiding her face as much as possible so that no one should see her wrinkles. When Brown Bear came home, he gave her the dainties, supposing she was his wife, and she ate them greedily, paying no attention to the baby, who was crying as if its heart would break. "Why does little Pigeon cry so?" asked the father. "I don't know," said the old woman. "I suppose he's hungry." Thereat she picked up the baby, shook it soundly, and made believe to nurse it. It cried louder than ever. She boxed its ears and stuffed something into its mouth to keep it quiet. Brown Bear thought his wife very cross, so he took his pipe and left the wigwam. The orphan boy had watched all these doings and had grown suspicious. Going to the fire, he pretended to brush away the ashes, and when he thought the old woman was not looking at him, he stirred the logs and made a bright flame leap up so that he could plainly see her face. He was sure that something was wrong. "Where is Snowbird?" asked he. She, said the old woman. "She is by the lake, swinging." The boy said no more, but went out of the wigwam and down to the lake. There he saw the broken swing, and guessing what had happened, he went in search of Brown Bear and told him what he had discovered. Brown Bear did not like to think any wrong of his mother and therefore asked her no questions. Sadly, he paced up and down outside the door of his wigwam. Then, taking some black paint, he smeared his face and body with it as a sign of mourning. When this was done, he turned his long spear upside down and, pressing it into the earth, prayed for lightning, thunder, and rain, so that his wife's body might rise from the lake. Every day he went thither, but saw no sign of his dear snowbird, though the thunder rolled heavily and the lightning had split a great oak near the wigwam from the top of the base to the base. He watched in the rain and the sunlight, and when the great white moon shone over the lake, but he saw nothing. Meanwhile, the orphan boy looked after little Pigeon, letting him suck the daintiest, juiciest bits of meat and bringing him milk to drink. On bright afternoons, he would take the baby to the lake shore and amuse him by throwing pebbles into the water. Little Pigeon would laugh and crow and stretch out his tiny hands, and then taking a pebble would try to throw it into the water himself. And though it always dropped at his feet, he was just as well pleased. One day, as they were playing in this manner, they saw a white gull rise from the center of the lake and fly towards the part of the shore where they were. When it reached them, it circled above their heads, flying down close to them until little Pigeon could almost touch its great white wings. Then all of a sudden, it changed to a woman, Snowbird, little Pigeon's mother. The baby crowed with delight and caught at two belts, one of the leather and one of the white metal that his mother wore about her waist. She could not speak, but she took the baby in her arms, fondled it, and nursed it. Then she made signs to the boy, by which he understood that he was to bring the child there every day. When Brown Bear came home that night, the boy told him all that had happened. The next afternoon, when the baby cried for food, the boy took him to the lake shore, Brown Bear following and hiding behind the bushes. The boy stood where he had before, close to the water's edge, and choosing a smooth, round pebble, raised his arm slowly and with careful aim threw it far out into the lake. Soon the gull, with a long, shining belt around its body, was seen rising. It came rising out of the water. It came ashore, hovered above them a moment, and, as on the previous day, changed into a woman and took the child in her arms. While she was nursing it, her husband appeared. The black paint was still on his body, but he held his spear in his hand. "Why have you not come home?" he cried, and sprang forward to embrace her. She could not speak, but pointed to the shining belt she wore. Brown Bear raised his spear carefully and struck a great blow at the lynx. They were shivered to fragments and dropped on the sands, where anyone seeing them would have supposed they were pieces of a large shell. Then Snowbird's speech returned, and she told how, when she fell into the lake, a water tiger seized her and, twisting his tail around her waist, drew her to the bottom. There she found a grand lodge whose walls were blue, like the blue jay's back when the sun shines upon it. green like the first leaves of the maize, and the golden like the bright sands on the island of the Caribs, and the floor was of sand, white as the snows of winter. This was the wigwam of the chief of the water tigers, whose mother was the horned serpent and lived with him. The serpent lay on a great white shell, which had knobs of copper that shone like distant campfires. But these were nothing to the red stone that sparkled on her forehead. It was covered with a thin skin like a man's eyelid, which was drawn down when she went to sleep. Her horns were very wonderful, for they possessed of magic. When they touched a great rock, the stone fell apart, and there was a pathway made through it wherever the serpent wanted to go. There were forests in the water tiger's country, trees with leaves like the willow, only longer, finer, and broader, bushes and clumps of soft, dark grass. When night came and the sun no longer shone down into the lodge, and the color went out of the walls, there were fireflies, green, blue, crimson, and orange, that lighted up the bushes outside the water tiger's wigwam, and the most beautiful of them passed inside and fluttered about the throne of the serpent, standing guard over her while the purple snails, the day sentinels, slept. Snowbird trembled when she saw these things and fell down in a faint before the great horned serpent. But the water tiger soothed her, for he loved her and wanted her to become his wife. This she consented to do at last, on condition that she should be allowed to go back sometimes to the lakeshore to see her child. The water tiger consulted his mother, who agreed to lend him a seagull's wing, which should cover his wife all over and enable her to fly to the shore. He was told, however, to fasten his tail securely around her waist, lest she should desert him when she found herself near her old home. He did so, taking care to put a leather belt around her, for fear the links of white metal might hurt her delicate skin. So she lived with the water tiger, kept his lodge in order, and made moccasins for the little water tigers out of beaver skin and dried fish scales, and was as happy as she could have been anywhere away from her own brown bear and little pigeon. When the old woman, Brown Bear's mother, saw them at the door of the wigwam, she leaped up and flew out of the lodge and was never seen again. The end. So, she fell into the water and felt trapped. And so she kind of felt like, well, I guess there's only one thing for me to do, and that's to, become his wife.
Yep.
But after all of that, it seems that, she made it home. The brown bear broke the belt, and she didn't say that, but we can assume that if she went back to the wigwam, mother left and was never seen again.
Yeah, that's the way to chase.
Fitting into a nasty mother-in-law.
That's right. That is right. Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that one. I sure did. That was a good one. New book. I like it. Yeah,
and I'm sorry, but my computer was doing something in the background, and then when I tried to get the page to go down, it just froze. So, but I started over so we could, if you're going to republish it, excuse me, you won't have any interruptions. And some of the, I'll tell you, even with my new glasses, sometimes those sentences get a little close. And I'm getting cataracts, so sometimes it's a little difficult for me to read some of this stuff, but I'm proud to be able to read it, and I hope you all enjoyed that story. And we've got a whole bookload of stories to be able to tell in the future. So come back.
I like it. More stories, the better. Yep. People like the stories. I like the stories. Heck.
Now,
okay, card time. What do we got?
well, while we was yakking earlier,
Okay.
I pulled cards, and there's 4 of them, 3 of which are upside down. And interesting, but there's Lynx, Weasel, that's upside down, Otter, which is upside down, and Skunk, which is upside down, which is interesting that, 2 of them are, the weasel and the otter could be in the same family, long and sleek. But there's no birds or insects in this. And there's 3 of them upside down, but that doesn't necessarily mean bad, but just curiosity. So anyway, Lynx is the first one up, number 18 in the book. And we haven't had Lynx in a little while.
Yeah, weasel, otter, lynx, and what other one?
And skunk.
Oh,
okay. Ooh, Lynx is secrets. It is said if you want to find out a secret, ask Lynx. Unfortunately, it is difficult to get the silent lynx to speak. To be confronted by the powerful medicine of Lynx signifies that you do not know something. You don't know something about yourself or some others. Lynx is the keeper of secrets, of the lost magical systems and occult knowledge. Lynx has the ability to move through time and space and to go into the great silence for unraveling any mystery. Now, the great silence is basically, deep meditation. So Lynx is not the guardian of the secrets, but the knower of the secrets. The problem lies in getting Lynx to instruct you. Lynx medicine is very specific type of clairvoyance. If this medicine is strong in you, you will get mental pictures. You will see fears and lies and self-deceptions. You will also know where they've hidden the treasure. The only way you can coax information about yourselves out of a Lynx medicine is to respect the practices of their traditions. So the offerings of tobacco and that type of thing. So if you're asking a prayer, it's always nice to have a little bit of tobacco to go with you. If Lynx is at your door, listen. Brother or sister Lynx can teach you of your personal power and of things you have forgotten about yourself. So the secret is you, me, and the rest of us, we've forgotten a lot of our own personal powers. And Lynx is here to say, hey, some medicine people believe that the Sphinx of Egypt is not a lion, but a lynx. This lynx does not say much. The great cat watches over the sands of forever. Now that's an interesting statement. The sands of forever. But so Lynx is the secret, and the secrets are about us. We have to learn what our old secrets were. Weasel is number 33, upside down. Weasel is stealth. Weasel has an incredible amount of energy and ingenuity, yet it is a difficult power totem to have. It is not without significance that ermine or weasel pelt is worn by royalty. Weasel ears hear what is really being said. So Lynx says to listen. Here is Weasel with its ears to listen. The chief sent Weasel to the enemy camp to smoke them for power. In other words, they went around to smoke them, was to find out what they had. What are the medicines of the enemy? The chiefs would ask the Weasel. Weasel never failed to give an accurate account of the enemy's numbers. Weasel fur changes color with the seasons. Silent Weasel has many lessons to teach you. Weasel could confound the Great Spirit, pick Great Spirit's pockets, and leave the Great Spirit contemplating his divine navel. That's how stealthy Weasel is. But it's upside down in the contrary position. Look out for intrigue. So Lynx is saying there are secrets coming, and now we've got intrigue. Someone may be using covert tactics to weasel into the hen house. Perhaps you should lock your doors and dress your teenager like a nun. Another message of reversed weasel is to acknowledge why you have been doubting your own feelings. So that's interesting, because here's Lynx trying to say we got secrets about yourself, and the message may be that is to acknowledge why you've been doubting your own feelings. Weasel upright observes all actions, feelings, and situations with keen senses. In the contrary, these abilities of observation are dulled until confusion sets in. If you want to write the situation, start by shaking the dullness out of your head and observing the obvious. No one can fool you if you watch your step. Honor your knowing and seek the hidden reasons and use discretion in the process. Interesting. Lynx got the secrets, and you need to, yep. You need to honor your knowing and seek the hidden reasons. Otter, number 8. It's still another critter that, scurries about. Number 8. That's way down here. Oops. Otter is woman's medicine. The medicine held by Otter is a set of lessons in female energy. This applies to both men and women, as all of us have female sides. The otter's hide is very often used to make medicine bags for powerful women because it represents balanced female energy. Otter is very caring of its young and will play for hours, performing all kinds of acrobats. The elements of earth and water are the female elements. At home in both of these elements, Otter is the personification of femininity. Now, but it's upside down. If Otter has appeared reversed, you may be running from one idea to another without focus. Now, so Lynx is telling you to holding the secrets. Weasel saying there are secrets that are hidden, and this one is saying you may be running from one idea to another without focus. I think maybe these are related. This could also imply that you have forgotten how to receive and are blocking a gift from the universe and the creator with your male side. If this is the case, you may be embarrassed to receive compliments, to have someone hug you, or to allow your genuine personality to come out. Fear of being rejected is the contrary message of the otter. So that's interesting in that how these are laid out tonight. And the next one is skunk, which is the next page back from the otter. And skunk is reputation. We know skunk by its reputation. Unlike predatory animals, skunk does not threaten your life, but threatens your senses. You know this to be true if you've ever been in the vicinity of a skunk. Skunk is teaching you that by walking your talk and by respecting yourself, you will create a position of strength and honored reputation. But if it's upside down, it says that skunk medicine operating through the contrary or reverse position indicates that your self-esteem may seem to others if you are putting on airs. Observe whether or not you are repelling others in your vicinity because of envy, jealous, or projection of their low self-esteem. So if you're around somebody that's always, low and you're trying to bring them up, but anyway, in leaking vital energy, you may be stinking up your environment. So Link's got the secret. You got to find out inside. And Otter's telling you, that, to bring out the woman's medicine, and that maybe you're rejecting a gift from the universe. And skunk is telling you to beware that by not accepting it, you're probably stinking up the situation. That's what it appears to me. So there's a message for tonight, Seek inside yourself for some of the answers and don't let it stink you up,
That's right. Richard Red says, are skunks unfriendly? Well, they are. You can tame. I've seen skunks that people have tamed down and have as pets.
I had a friend of mine back in the 70s. I mean, like 72. Had some skunk babies and took them to a vet and had them deskunked. They still had a strong odor, but these skunks just ran around like they, like pets.
Yeah. I think if you bred all, you're raising skunks, and nobody raises skunks, but I'm saying is if you did, I think you could probably tame them down to a really great extent.
They're very tame critters.
Yeah.
Because they have no fear. And when they're little, of course, they're, even more so. But he had run over the mother and killed it. And there were, I think, 2 babies, and he felt bad. So he put them in the back of this car, which smelled forever, but had them deskunked. And when I left Tampa, as far as I know, he still had the skunks. So, but anyway.
Nice. Yeah. I remember there was some in the backyard once, and the mother would come out, and I would sit in the shed and look between the boards, and watch her and the babies come out, and they'd play and stuff. And it was back before cameras and cell phone things, so I didn't get a picture, but it was pretty cool to watch them come out, and they just trip and fall over each other and play. And it was really cute to watch them. They all kind of stuck together, and so pretty cool. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. Mary Wins is in the house. She says, I've seen a skunk up close and personal 3 times, maybe. There you go. Anyway, thank you, Chloe, for being in the house. She stuck it out the whole show. Hey, speaking of show, you gonna have a show after this?
Maybe. As we
Maybe.
discussed before we came on, I've not been doing well the last couple of days, and so I'll take a little break, and maybe that's a really maybe.
All right. Richard Red's in the house. Mary wins. Hope you're feeling better. Let's see. Who else is in here? I know Nina the Mystic was in here earlier. Lucky Stone, with all the great information he brings along about Massachusetts. In that area, he's very fluent on that. So thank you much for that. Anyway, let's see what about possums? Mary says, what about possums? I don't know anybody who had a possum for a pet. No, didn't
I got possums around the house, and Duggar loves to chase and kill them until they get up and run away.
Yeah, they do play dead.
He's killed 5 or 6 possums that got up and ran away.
And when they pretend they're dead, they look really dead.
They smell it. I mean, because he's like down there with his nose, like, and kind of kicking them, and they like won't move, and he looks around and walks around the possum and like, okay, it's dead, and leaves it, doesn't care. And I go back outside, usually out this back door, and it'll be curled up deader than a doornail, and come back in the house and go get some coffee and walk back out there. It'd be gone.
Gone. Susie Q's in the house. Love y'all bunches.
Thank you all. I love you all, and thank you so much for your prayers and kindness for both of us over the years. This is 139 shows we've done, and many of you have been with us over the years, and I just want to say thank you for being with us and and hanging out. It means a lot to me. And I know it does to Robert too, because no matter how we feel, we're still here every Tuesday if we can. So thank you all for being with us. I really do mean that.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Looks like Lucky had a possum. It rehabilitated and lived in the barn. It was like an ugly house cat. Everyone else hated it. Yep.
They're ugly.
So there you go. Richard says, congratulations on 139. Next week will be 140. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, pretty soon we'll be doing our 200th show.
Well, anyway, we're working on 150.
That's right. We're getting close to that 150. There you go. Thank you, everybody. Another one in the bag. We're gonna sign off a little early today because we're not
early tonight.
Yeah, we're under the weather a little bit today. So with that, remember, everybody, if you enjoy these stories, listen to them later on the shorts. And remember, I got really good book stories here, and David's got a whole new book. Join us next week. Don't forget, this next coming Sunday, I will be on Nina's show, Sunday Live. We'll be talking about I Pet Goat #3. What kind of wisdom and future telling does that have for us? Remember, go out and get your own Milky Way Soul Tribe shirt right there on Nina's merch channel. And a link is in the description below, and you too can have a Milky Way Soul Tribe shirt. Thank you, everyone. Yep, have a great week. Thank you, Lucky. And we're going to have another great show on Saturday. So join me then and there. Remember, go out and do something nice for somebody. Make it from the heart. That's all I ask. Do it.
And also, the message for today is look inside yourself and see if there's something you may be denying gifts from the universe. And as you always hear me say, I always pray that each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. And tonight's cards are saying, if you may be blocking it, there may be messages and gifts for you, but if you're not receiving it and accepting it, well, keep an eye on it, my friends, because the cards are kind of clear tonight,
That's right. That is so right. And with that, remember, everybody, Go out, be the frequency you want to receive. It's always the best. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.
And